tutorial, I'm going to go over several different commands in one lesson. And the reason why only one of these I consider to be like really important. The others are probably used less frequently. So the first item I want to talk about is the scale command. And please do not get this confused with viewport scaling. All right, this is something completely different. Scale is something that you do almost exclusively in model space, which will affect what is shown in the viewport. For example, I've taken a measurement of our one side of this object and how it shows up in the viewport. Now, I'm going to use the scale command. Okay, it's here on the modify panel, or you can just type SC and then enter, and you can select the object. And I want you to do the same thing exactly as I do it here. Okay, so you select the object and then you press enter. Okay, and then AutoCAD asks you to specify a base point. Choose this as your base point. Okay, the end point of the 3 lines that you see here. And now it asks you to specify a scale factor. Okay, if you want this object half the size that it is currently, you type in 0.5. If you want it twice the size that it is currently, then you type 2. And you can do all different types of scale factors. And also, there are some options here, but we're not going to cover that in this video. So let's scale this up by a factor of 2. So type in 2 and then enter. Okay. Now this does affect the way this is displayed in the viewport. Okay. But I want to be sure to let you know that anytime that you draw in model space, especially your 1-view drawings, your 2-view drawings, your 3-view drawings, so on and so forth, always draw those 1-to-1. Okay, if you're given a measurement of 1.5, you need to draw a line 1.5. Okay, the times when you'll use this, and this is an example. So this is a 3-view drawing, and often you'll have an isometric view as a visual aid to whoever is reading the plan. Okay, so let's say that you drew your object. Okay, and let me change my viewport scale on this particular object. Okay, so let's say that I changed my viewport scale from 1/2 to 1-to-1. Okay, and I'm gonna get my views really close together where they'll show up in the viewport. Just trying to give you an example here. Now, since the isometric view is a visual aid, you can change the scale a bit. Okay, it doesn't have to be to any scale. So if just to get this to fit at the current viewport scale, I could scale this by 0.5. Okay, and then I could move this into place. All right. This is just an example of how to use the scale command. I just don't want you to confuse the viewport scale for scaling in model spaces. They're two different things. Okay, so you won't use the scale command very often, but I need to tell you about it. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is something that is very helpful, and it's called the MTEXT command. Okay, and let me go to our text layer. Okay, and to enter the MTEXT command, by the way, you can do MTEXT in model space or paper space, but MTEXT is multi-line text. Okay, in the past we've used DT, okay, which enters a single line text command. So if you've got a note or something like that, DT is a quick and easy way to add a note to a drawing. If you need to add a paragraph style block of text, then you want to use MTEXT. Okay. Now, to make sure that your text shows up at the proper height, just like dimensioning, I prefer to add text in paper space, not model space, because if your viewport scale is not 1-to-1, your text type will not show up right unless you make you can make some changes. You can have annotative text, but I think it's just easier to do it in paperspace. Okay, it's less confusing. Okay, so to use multi-line text, you can type MT. Okay, or on the annotation panel of the Home tab, you can find actually single line, which is DT, and multi-line text on the same panel. But again, I like using the shortcut command, so I typed in MT, or you can type MTEXT, and then it wants me to specify the first corner. Okay, now your first corner, I mean, I think it just makes sense to make it the top left corner of where you want your text to be. So I'm going to click here. Now at this point, you could go ahead and specify, if you know all your settings are correct, you can go ahead and specify the lower right corner. This is like a window where we're going to apply the text. Okay. But right now, I want to make sure that the height of the text is correct. Okay. So I want to type H, or I can just click height here. Okay. And I want to specify the height at 0.125 and then enter. Okay. And you can also do justification here just like you would in Microsoft Word. You can do line spacing, rotation, so on and so forth. You can do width, which is the width between letters. Quite a few options here, but that's the only one I want to worry about right now is the height of the text. I'm going to go down to the lower right area here and click, and and now we're ready to type. Okay, so I want you to type this exactly as I have here. So I'll type in items learned in this lesson. Okay, and then a colon. And then I'll just click out of it. Okay. Now hopefully yours is showing up like this. Okay. If it isn't, right click on the text box and go to editor settings, and if always display as WYSI, WYG, which is what you see is what you get, if that isn't checked, make sure that is checked. Okay. And otherwise your text might be really long or really big or so on and so forth. You know, what you see is what you get. In other words, after I click out of this text box, this is exactly what's going to appear on the page. Okay, and notice that this is in paper space, not Bible space. Okay, so one thing that you may have noticed is that, and we're going to add to this, by the way, one of the things that you might have noticed is that some font colors don't show up very well. Well, they do show up when you print, and when I say that, when you go to work, chances are most of the things that you'll print will be in black and white. Okay, and you'll be able to tell the different types of lines basically based on the thickness of the line, the use of the line, and the type of the line, like dashed or center line, so on and so forth. Now, if you try to print this, I'm going to go down to print and then plot. Now you get a lot of different options, okay, and you can choose different types of printers, but DWF to PDF is pretty good considering you may be at home or you may be in the lab, so on and so forth. So you can, instead of actually printing out a piece of paper, you can print to PDF. Okay. Actually, got a little ahead of myself. Let me close this out. I'm going to talk to you about page setup. Type in page setup, one word, okay, and then we want to modify layout 1, okay. Under plot style table, this is the only setting change that you need to make. Let's make this monochrome, okay. When we make it monochrome, it's going to print out in black and white. Okay, so now let me go on the AutoCAD application button, go down to print, DWG to PDF, okay, and let's just preview. So now you can see that this actually does show up well. Okay. Now, one thing I did notice is that nope, it's fine. It's fine. But you can see that the cyan color, even though it may be a little hard to read here, If you print it out in black and white, then it does show up as it should.